Hello dear viewers and welcome to the radio television of Djibouti. Here are our major stories. President Geli regains the capital after his participation in the inauguration of President Erdogan. In all international news, 12 died in a suicide bombing near a gas station in Afghanistan. Thank you for joining us. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, returned today, Tuesday, early afternoon to the capital after his participation yesterday in Ankara, the inauguration ceremony of the Turkish re-elected counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Diplomatic and friendly support, the participation of President Guelleh in the investiture of his re-elected counterpart also gives full measure of the privileged character of the cooperation relations and exchanges which unite the two countries and the two peoples. The head of state was greeted at his descent from the aircraft by the Prime Minister, the President of the National Assembly and members of the government. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, took part yesterday in the inauguration ceremony of his re-elected counterpart of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The participation of Djiboutians represented at this high level, in this case of that of the President Ismail Omar Guelleh at the inauguration ceremony of President Erdogan, is far from accidental. It serves as a diplomatic support to the leadership of a country linked to ours through a series of win-win partnerships. It is especially revealing of a convergence of view which characterize the two principal leaders of the two countries. Like his Turkish counterpart, President Ismail Omar Guelleh has undeniably been for nearly 20 years at the origin of the political, cultural, intellectual renewal prevailing at home, whose ultimate goal is to provide him with the necessary foundation of his development and its influence. In his inaugural address, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made a general presentation of the global objectives he sets for his country during the new 5-year term. He will be responsible for leading the destiny of his people. To this end, the re-elected president has defined the search for results in political action and by the accentuation of the efforts dedicated to the promotion of the cohesion and national solidarity. It is necessary to understand, he said, the evolution of the country to a nation in peace with itself and which made of its cultural diversities and others as a wealth and not a motive of discord, he continued. A strategist with an undeniable political vision, he was also able to confer on his country international partnerships which at the very least they are invaluable and capable of generating highly useful alliance and a global influence on the diplomatic, military and commercial. Like the 40 or so other heads of states and government present at the investiture ceremony of the Turkish President, President Guelleh also took part in the dinner given by Mr. Tayyip Erdogan after his speech at the presidential palace of Ankara in honor of its distinguished guests. An important delegation, including the Minister of Economy and Finances, Yasin Musudwali, accompanied the President of the Republic as part of this trip to Ankara. Also noteworthy is the presence of within the leadership of the head of state of the Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti to the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Aden Hussein Abdullahi. In addition to strong links through history, the Republic of Djibouti and Turkey have strategic and win-win partnerships in almost all areas of development, and bilateral cooperation between the two countries in the specific field of geothermal energy is the culmination of a successful collaboration between the two nations. Turkish-Djiboutian cooperation in the field of geothermal energy includes a financing component, a transfer of skills and expertise, an assistance component in terms of exploration and exploitation of geothermal provisions. Thanks to this partnership, our country is in the process of overcoming one of the last obstacles that hindered its access to sustainable development. Following the unfortunate weather and landslides that plunged Japan, in his message, the President of the Republic wrote, I quote, "It is with deep sadness that we have learned the dramatic of the bad weather that hit the provinces from the west of your country. In this painful circumstance, we express to the inhabitants of the stricken regions our most saddened condolences and our mercies. And know that the new record of the authorities is currently 141 dead bodies that were found by the rescuers. The Japanese government estimates that these are the worst floods since 1983 in the country. Many buildings have collapsed and many areas are still covered with sticky mud, and 75,000 law enforcement officers and firefighters are mobilized. Authorities also warned the public about the risk of a violent storm. In the framework of the upcoming inauguration of the geothermal project in Lake Assal, our editorial team has prepared for us a reportage on the history of the geothermal project. Here it is commented by Saeed Mohammed.
Djibouti and geothermal energy. Its long history. Located in a volcanic zone where the earth crust is the least dense in the world, on the northern tip of the African rift, Djibouti is on a furnace whose smoke could allow to produce 5,000 megawatts on 20 sites now located on the national scale. The geothermal work site started way before independence with several wells explorations. However, the recognition, exploitation and evaluation of such resource that is part of the mining sector always requires substantial programs or time investment, but also technology, which are the key factor before any industrial exploration. Thus, in the history of the exploration, we can distinguish 4 different important dates. From 1970 to 1975, the geothermal exploration in the Assal region was selected from the geological, geophysical and gradient drillings. In 1980 to 1985, relates to the inventory of existing thermal events on the national territory following various geological, geophysical, but also geochemical studies as well as gradient drillings, which was concentrated in the area of Anglais. The result of these studies as well as the logistic condition made it possible to choose the Anglais area. In January 1987 to July 1988, it is marked by the development of geothermal resources, particularly in Anglais region. This results in the completion of 2 deep boreholes reached the depth of 1,625 meters in Anglais 1 sector and 2,083 meters in Anglais 2 sector. The objectives pursued by this deep exploration consisted on the one hand to find sufficient impermeability that can provide an interesting flow, and on the other hand a minimum temperature of 180 to 200 degrees Celsius to ensure the steam production. From April 1989 to April 1990, the incrustations and corrosion studies are done with the aim of obtaining essential elements to reduce the risk of the development phase. Between the first attempt from the mining office in 1972 and the promise made by the Assal and Fi Ali located a stone throw away, the French, Italian, Americans, Icelandic, Turkish and Japanese experts have succeeded from one to another alongside Djiboutians' national territory, who have the French, Italians, Americans, Icelandic, Turkish and Japanese experts who have succeeded each other alongside Djiboutians have multiplied round trip between the salt lakes of the country before settling not far from the Gubet. If the first companions of drillings are encouraging, the research stopped in 1987 for lack of result. It will be necessary to wait for the arrival in 1999 of the President Ismail Omar Guelleh's elections to launch the research of the geothermal energy in the country. It must be said that President Guelleh has visited several countries that use renewable energy, including geothermal, so that his country can enlighten their know-how in this field. Always in the quest to turn the country into the renewable energy era, the head of state will send young people to be trained in this field. He will also set up the Djiboutian Geothermal Energy Agency.
And now let's follow this reportage on the different stages which this project went through.
The geothermal exploitation program in the country is divided into two categories. The first one is based on the exploitation of geothermal in large depth, but also in short depth. Thus, the drilling of a 3 shallow well was undertaken for an estimated cost of $20 million to be financed entirely by the country. The short-term exploitation was not limited to these 3 wells, and it is located at Pika 20 near the region of Arta. To do so, the Republic of Djibouti has additionally benefited from agreements contracted with the Commission of the African Union, in particular the Electricity National Agency in Djibouti, known as the ADD, is not left out in the geothermal field because of a loan from the World Bank of an amount of $48 million. The EDD will set up a couple drillings set of a geothermal power plant.
And to wrap up the national news with this press release from the RPP party, the Secretary General of the RPP party has in a statement on behalf of the President of the party and President of the Republic on behalf of the Executive Committee and the Popular Rally for Progress welcomes the recent positive developments in the relations between Eritrea and Ethiopia by the joint declaration of peace and friendship in Asmara. The Popular Rally for Progress welcomes the new era of peace and friendship between the two peoples. The party supports the bold initiative of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for his commitment to peace between the two countries and generally in the Horn of Africa. The Popular Rally for Progress, which has always worked for peace and reconciliation among the people of the region, encourages the achievement of a lasting peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia and gives priority to regional integration. The interests of our peoples by banishing forever conflicts based on the traces of our borders inherited from the colonial era. The RPP party hopes that this dynamic of peace will be inclusive and profitable for the sub-region, as well as is convinced that the dividends of renewed peace will bring the whole region to prosperity and sustainable development that will benefit our peoples. And that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on RTD channel and have a good night.